Good afternoon. Up here in Mount Desert Island, looking over at, I think that's Greening Island. I'm not sure. I can't remember which island that is. Anyway, sitting on the mighty Ranger, Morris 42X, long gone. Today, in Washington, D.C., this morning, there were a number of things released by the Supreme Court of the United States, mostly judgments in regards applications for writs of certiorari, which is, hey, I'd like you guys to hear my case. And the Supreme Court says, yeah, we'll hear your case. Or the Supreme Court says, no, go away. We don't want to hear your case today, or tomorrow, or the next day, or ever. Well, usually it's not a moment of note, but today, Justice Samuel Alito, the man who brought you the Dobbs decision, decided to weigh in on a writ of certiorari. By the way, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't say these things very well. Oh, by the way, hi everybody. Pragmatic Crystal, Tsunami, Colossia, how's it going? Here, anyway. Anyway, Justice Alito decided that he just couldn't resist, given the opportunity to comment on a case that was brought by a plaintiff in Missouri against the Department of Corrections. This person was an employee of the Department of Corrections in Missouri who sued her employer for discrimination on the basis of sex, that she alleged. And I have to assume, I haven't really looked up this case specifically, but I have to assume that she won her case against the Department of Corrections, alleging that the Department of Corrections either discriminated against her, caused an unsafe working environment. Of course, working in a jail, how can you be altogether that safe? In some manner or fashion, discriminated against her on the basis of the fact that she was a lesbian. So so it goes through the courts, and I'll just let Justice Alito describe the case in detail here. So bear in mind, this person, the appellant, is a lesbian. She alleges her employer discriminated against her on that basis. And I have to assume that since it's made it to a petition for a writ of certiorari before the Supreme Court, she won the case. Well, a little something happened. Let's just show that Justice Alito does understand the nature of the facts, and listen carefully to what Soapy Sam had to say. There's a link to this. There's a link to this in. Oh, wait a second. I gotta get things together here. I want to interact here. I want to make sure I'm on. No, I want to be on page 25, I think is where it starts. Yep, right here. Okay, so here we go. Supreme Court of the United States, Missouri Department of Corrections versus Gene Finney on petition for writ of certiorari, cert, the folks like to call it, to the Court of Appeals of Missouri Western District, decided February 20th, 2024. That would be today. The petition for a writ of certiorari is denied. Statement of Justice Alito respecting the denial of cert. These are the words of Justice Alito. I agree that we should not grant certiorari in this case, which is complicated by a state law procedural issue. But I write because I am concerned that the lower court's reasoning may spread and may be a foretaste of things to come. Ooh. Ominous. In this case, the court below reasoned that a person who still holds traditional religious views on questions of sexual morality is presumptively unfit to serve on a jury in a case involving a party who is a... I wonder if it pained Justice Alito to type these words. Lesbian. That holding exemplifies the danger that I anticipated in Obergfell v. Hodges, 576 U.S. 644, 2015, namely that Americans who do not hide their adherence to traditional religious beliefs about homosexual conduct will be labeled as bigots and treated as such by the government. ID at 741, dissenting opinion. This is Justice Alito vehemently dissented in Obergfell, which, for those of you who don't recall or don't remember, that's the one what allowed gay couples to get married, get to the people they love, and acquire the rights that all other married couples in this country possess as regards determining who has visitation rights in a hospital, who gets to make decisions about life and death, who gets to be married. Obergfell. Well, Sam didn't like the idea that you should be married to someone you love. They figured that if you're going to get married, you should get married some other way. The opinion of the court in that case made it clear that the decision should not be used in that way. What way? A person who still holds traditional religious views on question of sexual morality that way is presumptively unfit to serve on a jury in the case involving a party who's a lesbian. Now remember this case, what this case is about. This case is about a woman who sued the Department of Corrections in the state of Missouri for discriminating against her because she is a lesbian. Justice Alito is writing that jurors who hold traditional religious views on questions of sexual morality should be seated to judge the case of a person they consider to be sexually immoral. You'll see how he reasons this out. But I'm afraid that this admonition is not being heeded by our society. If this were an op-ed in somewhere, it'd be one thing. But this is a justice of the United States Supreme Court. This case is about Missouri's for-cause dismissal of two jurors based on their religious beliefs. Jean Finney sued her employer, the Missouri Department of Corrections, in state court under the Missouri Human Rights Act, which prohibits employment discrimination on the basis of sex, which I presume includes sexual orientation from case law. It does not. I did make reference to the statute. It does not explicitly prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. Those words are not used. Hi, Ember. Truck broke down. Holy shit. Damn it. Ryan, good to see you. I'm trying to be more assiduous about recognizing what's going on in the chat, so this may get a wee bit. Jean Finney's under the Missouri Human Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination and employment discrimination on the basis of sex. See the statute. Finney alleged that she is a lesbian who presents masculine, and that she was, quote, improperly stereotyped and discriminated against based on sex. Appellant to petition for cert. At the beginning of voir dire, now this is the way the case unfolded in Missouri. At the beginning of voir dire, jury selection, Finney's attorney asked all the jurors what he characterized as a, quote, tricky question, namely whether any of them, quote, went to a conservative Christian church where, quote, it was taught that people who are homosexual shouldn't have the same rights as anyone else because what they did was a sin. The question was indeed tricky because it conflated two separate issues, whether the prospective jurors believed that homosexual conduct is sinful and whether they believed that gays and lesbians should not enjoy the legal rights possessed by others. In response to this question, some potential jurors raised their hands, and Finney's lawyer then questioned them individually. During this phase of voir dire, Juror 4, a pastor's wife, stated that homosexuality, according to the Bible, is a sin. But she quickly added, so is gossiping, so is lying. None of us can be perfect. And so I'm here because it's an honor to sit in here, and perhaps be part of, a civic duty. Juror 13 similarly stated that he believes homosexuality is a sin because it's in the Bible. But he followed by noting that every one of us here sins. It's just part of our nature, and it's something we struggle with, hopefully, throughout our life. Isn't that great? I hope you all... Hey, everybody here, Amber, Tsunami, Randy, thanks for coming. I hope everybody here struggles with sin your entire life. There ain't no love like Christian love, is there? Hey, Jason. Jeez, I'm crow. And it's something we struggle with, hopefully, throughout our life. And the fact that it is a sin has really nothing to do with, in a negative way, with whatever this case is going to be about. And the case is going to be about a lesbian who was discriminated against on the job, masculine presenting lesbian who was discriminated against on the job by the Department of Corrections of the state of Missouri. I can understand why Ms. Finney's counsel moved to strike these jurors for cause, arguing there's no way somebody who looks at a gay person and says, you are a sinner, could ever fairly consider a case involving a lesbian plaintiff. The trial judge granted that motion. She noted that both jurors said that they could follow the law and that she did not suggest that she disbelieve them. Nevertheless, she concluded that she should err on the side of caution, and she therefore dismissed jurors 4 and 13 because there were enough jurors left without them. In other words, the jury pool was full. Then, it's no need to put these people who think queer people are sinful on a jury that's going to decide a case of discrimination against a queer person. That would be erring on the side of caution. Because it says so in the Bible. Jesus Christ. The Missouri Court of Appeals affirmed the dismissals for 2 reasons. First, it reasoned that the jury's belief that Finney's conduct was sinful, meaning immoral and wrong, provided a sustainable ground for concluding that they could not impartially and fairly decide her claim that she was unlawfully harassed due to her homosexuality, even if these veneer members claimed their religious beliefs would not prevent them from serving. Second, so that's one. Second, the court concluded that the jurors had been dismissed not on the basis of their religious status, but on the basis of their religious beliefs. And this distinction, it said, made all the difference because in its view, while dismissals based on a juror's status as Christians must comport with strict scrutiny, dismissals based on a juror's views need not. Let's switch it up here. We'll take a little pause in Justice Alito's little disquisition and recitation of the facts before us. Suppose those 2 Christians went to a church that taught that Jews were sinful because they did not accept Jesus Christ as their Savior. Let's just suppose that's the case. Or that atheists were sinful, similar reasons. Or Muslims were sinful, similar reasons. Sinful, meaning immoral and wrong. And the Department of Corrections decided that, well, we're going to fire you. Why? Because you wear a yarmulke to work every day. What? I'm sure Justice Alito wouldn't go there. But when it comes to queer people, they shouldn't get married and they shouldn't have any any protections. I'd love to see a Supreme Court argument that uses fuck somewhere in it. But, that would be obscenity. And of course, you know it when you see it. That's another great Supreme Court fucking these assholes. Anyway. In its view, while dismissals based on a juror's status of Christians must comport with strict scrutiny, dismissals based on a juror's views need not. I mean, think about in voir dire, somebody says, how do you feel about these people? Well, I think that they're immoral. Is that gonna affect your opinion based on? Can you view the evidence based on? No, that's fine. I know they're immoral and probably lying sacks of shit, and probably they deserve to go to hell. But before us, Alito continues, the Department of Corrections argues that these 4 cause dismissals were unconstitutional, and I agree that the Court of Appeals reasoning raises a very serious and important question that we should address in an appropriate case. Sam here is begging for an appropriate case so he can put it to gay people. The judiciary, no less than the other branches of state and federal government, must respect people's fundamental rights, unless they're queer. And among these are the right to the free exercise of religion and the right to the equal protection of the laws, like the ones against discrimination if you're queer. God, I hope Alito never winds up on, he's on a permanent jury, this guy. God help you if you're queer and you come before him, because he's just begging for a way. I mean, this guy is literally writing this. Right to equal protection of law. When a court, a quintessential state actor, finds that a person is ineligible to serve on a jury because of his or her religious beliefs, that decision implicates fundamental rights under the Free Exercise Clause. The nerve of this man. State actions that single out the religious for disfavored treatment must survive the most rigorous scrutiny. Trinity Lutheran Church of Columbia Incorporated versus Comer. Citation. You guys can look this up. You can, if you want to follow the citations. I'm not a lawyer. I never intend to practice law. I mean, good God. Anyway, and that is true regardless of whether the differential treatment is predicated on religious status or religious belief. Our presidents make it clear that distinctions based on religious beliefs, no less than distinctions based on religious status, must advance interests of the highest order and must be narrowly tailored in pursuit of those interests. Under Missouri law, the standard for determining whether a jury should be excused for a cause is whether his or her views would prevent or substantially impair the performance of duties as a juror. If a court has found sound basis for concluding that a particular juror's beliefs would prevent or substantially impair his or her ability to render impartial justice, dismissal for cause clears that high bar. The Constitution guarantees both criminal and civil litigants a right to an impartial jury. Now, look it. Your lawyer asked the jury, do you think homosexuals are immoral and wrong? And you're representing a gay client in a discrimination lawsuit, and the juror says, yes. And you say, no, I want to use my challenge to exclude this juror from serving on the jury. Maybe you got a good lawyer? I don't know. Sound basically the jury's it clears that high bar. The Constitution guarantees both criminal and civil litigants a right to an impartial jury. So a court has an indisputably significant interest in seating a jury that can properly and impartially apply the laws to the facts of the case. Jurors are duty-bound to decide cases based on law and evidence, and a juror who cannot carry out that duty may properly be excused. But otherwise, I see no basis for dismissing a juror for a cause based on religious beliefs. I would vote to grant review in this case. In other words, give it to me. Were it not for the fact that the Court of Appeals concluded the Department of Corrections did not properly preserve an objection to dismissal of the two potential jurors, thus that their dismissal was reviewable under state law only for plain error. Because this state law question would complicate our review, I reluctantly concur in the denial a certiorari. Rari. Bleh. So that's our man, Justice Samuel Alito, positively begging I don't know, Americans defending families to find a case that'll get cert so that he can overturn Obergfell. And a whole host of other things. Why? Because his religious beliefs should be paramount in judging whether someone is discriminated against or not. Because the Catholic Church's determination of what is sin should be the determination in deciding cases in the United States of America. Because religious people have primacy in this Christian nation over the beliefs of anyone else, be they Jew, Muslim, Jain, atheist. Because he asserts his primacy. Wearing that black robe, it might as well be crimson with a little red beanie. The Opus Dei court is in session, folks. And if you don't think that the next Republican administration will make sure it stays in session in as much perpetuity as it can possibly arrange, you're very sadly mistaken. This is the stuff that is on the table. When I talk about waking up every day to a new horror, granted, this one could conceivably affect me, being queer. I'm unlikely to get married again. But these are people's rights that are on the table. I was also I read this, I did catch up on the stats on how much anti-trans legislation's been introduced this year, since the 1st of January this year, 2024. Over 400 bills have been introduced in legislatures all across the country that would, in one fashion or another, basically morally mandate transgenderism out of existence, as called for at the Conservative Political Action Conference by Michael Knowles. 400. When is it going to get up to 1,000 so that the death by 1,000 cuts is for real? When are we going to realize that this is our Supreme Court? This is a Supreme Court justice, one of 9. I mean, I can imagine Clarence Thomas voting to overturn Loving v. Virginia in a remarkable judicial act of the reenactment of welcoming Sheriff Bart to town in Blazing Saddles. I don't. I see there's a lot of discussion in the chat about just the facts of the case. Now I don't want to get in. It's like, geez, impartial juries is part of the entire judicial process. And yes, we can get down into like blah 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 blah. But one thing we shouldn't have to do is worry about seating somebody who would answer the question, how do you feel about Chinese people? With a Chinese person sitting on trial, or an Italian person. Let's get really turn of the 20th century. How do you feel about the eye ties? You think they should be sitting on the Supreme Court? No, absolutely not. They're bound to the Pope. Well, Judge Alito, Justice Alito, we stopped thinking that way. That's why you're sitting on the Supreme Court. But you want to take your privilege and use it to take away the rights of your fellow Americans because of your traditional religious beliefs that apparently should be paramount in a secular constitutional democracy, according to you. So, I'm telling you, I don't want to do that. Wait a second. Go away. I don't know what to tell you, folks. It's just a crying shame where we're at right now in this country. This came out, as I said this morning, this came out today. And I'll agree with Justice Samuel Alito. This is a harbinger. This is a troubling omen of what could be headed down the pike if we continue to let it slide. If we keep letting it slide this way and keep going in this direction. I've seen better days. Lots better days. We don't have to be like this. What do we got to do to work together to make some changes? Because we got to start making some changes. The hopes, the dreams, the changes that we made to get to the point before this pushback were dramatic, and it took hard work. And to stem this tide of retrogression is going to take a lot of work. And we've done the work, and we can do it again, but we'd better start soon. It's what I got. It's all I got. Thanks for coming. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you all. Please like, subscribe, help me out with a coin in the cup. I really would appreciate it. I really need it at the moment. I'm just trying to get through the next 10 days before I get a little bit more funding coming down. Trying to get some work out the door and money in the door, but it's really, really rough right now. So anything you can do to help keep the kettle boiling, I would very much appreciate it. And by keep the kettle boiling, I mean that sincerely. I need to keep myself in heating oil. So if you've got a couple of pennies, you know, my Ko-fi is on the screen right now, and there's a link in the description. So give me a little bit of a handshake, a little bit of coffee. And congratulations to a really great performance, answering phone calls while terribly under the weather by Maya Atkinson on the Lines Skep Talk with Shannon Q last night. Great show. I was there in the chat modding with all of Maya's fans were in there. You know, it was great. It's good to see. And so be sure you catch that. I know Ember's got some stuff coming up later on. All you guys, Dave, hi, how you doing? I know I noticed that Dave had some stuff going on out there. Everybody that's part of this community, I know you care deeply about the stuff I just went over, but I so much appreciate you all, and we all need to hang together and move it forward. Don't let them take the prize that we worked for away. Eyes on the prize always. And when you see somebody trying to take the prize off the table, let's stop that bullshit. Everybody have a good rest of your day. I'm out of here. So, here we go. There we go. Off we go.